Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Will Patterson. In today's video, sponsored by Skillshare, I'm going to be showing you 5 mind-blowing typography tips for any graphic designers. These will seriously help your typography game. Okay, tip number 1, how to kern professionally. Some people call me the kern police for a reason. Here I've got an example of bad kerning. This font is Helvetica. To learn how to kern, you need to know a bit about it. Kerning is not the space in between every character. The spacing in between all characters is called the tracking, which is changed up here. And you can see there, that looks like it's badly kerned, but in fact, we've just changed the tracking. They all move in unison. Kerning is the space in between individual glyphs or ligatures or characters inside of the typeface. The reason why type designers have to kern letters and different shapes is because they don't look evenly spaced, even when they mathematically are evenly spaced. We have to either move a space out or in. So for instance here, I know just by looking at this that the E is way too far away from the R. We're trying to look for even spacing throughout each letter. And if you're designing a logo type or you want to change the kerning, essentially we just press Option or Alt and use the arrow keys and we bring them in and out. That will change the kerning. We can see here in the character panel, which you can get up from window down to character, or press Command T. We're changing the spacing in between each one, like the N and the I, they look too far away from each other. The N and the G, they look too far away from each other. The I looks a bit too far there. Boom, we've got some pretty good kerning there, in my opinion. Kerning is actually quite subjective to the type designer. But if you're still struggling to get that right kern and you don't know whether it is correct or not, this is something you can do. Take the lettering, we're going to press O and we're going to reflect it. I'm going to press Option and click, and we're going to reflect it vertical. Press copy and that'll make a copy. That has mirrored the type. Now your brain is not looking at this type in letters, they're looking at them as shapes and masses because we're not able to sort of read it very easily. Now the problems become really easy to see. We've got way too much space here, way too much space here. And you can see there that what we need to do now is essentially kern it whilst it's backwards. So here I'm just going to set the kerning back, boom. And what we can do now is reflect it back to where it should be, and we have pretty good kerning there. Okay, so tip number 2 is kind of the same as tip number 1, however, it's to do with your software. Okay, this is one of the most important public announcements we can make as a graphic designer. When you bring a font in, there are 3 options here. There is Auto, Optical, and Metrics. Auto is basically Metrics most of the time. The difference between Optical here and Metrics here is not just that it's better kerning in Metrics, but that the Metrics is the exact kerning that the type designer used when designing the font. Optical is Adobe Illustrator's own kerning algorithm being used for poorly designed or kerned fonts. So if you're wondering why your type looks funky, make sure that you've got it set to Metrics. Then that will be the exact kerning that the designer chose for the font. So when do we use Metrics and Optical? Okay, so I'm here in InDesign, and this is one of my pieces of work that I've been working on. It's a grid layout for a newsletter. Now, if I go ahead and select my type here, and if I chose Optical, the kerning is a lot worse and a lot more hard to read. If I select my type and I go from Metrics to Optical, you'll notice that some of the letter forms shift. Basically, InDesign has overwritten the kerning from the type designer, making it probably less legible. So whenever you are dealing with blocks of text like this, always use Metrics because the type designer has gone to great lengths in designing and making sure the kerning is correct, the spacing between each individual character. So when do we ever use Optical? Well, generally you don't have to use it that often unless you're working with a logo type and you're using a font, or if it's a headline. And the reason why is sometimes type and fonts don't look great with one line. Sometimes we have to kern them again after when they're in a logo type fashion. For instance, here, I've just written logo type here with Helvetica New. If I go ahead and select Optical, that will overwrite the kerning from the designer of Helvetica New. And now I can actually go ahead and kern this the way that I want it to be for the logo type. This is quite common practice, and this is not sacrilege. This is something quite quite normal. So I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments. This can take time. Then I'm going to reflect it like we did last time. I'm going to spot some problems that we may encounter, like the Q maybe coming further in. Amazing. We're going to bring this around again, and there. I quite like it quite tight. So that is the only time you really need to ever use optical, unless the font has been poorly designed. In tip number 3, I'm going to show you how to create a harmonious type system using the golden ratio. The first thing you want to do is work out what your baseline, your body text is, which is the text that you spend most of the time reading. Here we have body text, we have title and captions. How do we know what size it should be for print or digital media? Generally speaking, there is a book called Raster Systems, which it talks about the sizing of type. If we have a column, there should be between 7 to 10 words per column. And by having 7 to 10 words in a column, on average, you can make sure that the reader doesn't become fatigued, they don't get tired, that they're not jumping up and down the page when they're reading. So using that rule, you can actually work out the leading, which is the space in between each line of text, but also we can work out the size of the body text. So I'm back in Illustrator, and what we can actually do is in a text box, we can work out between 7 to 10 words per column, like so. Okay, so we've got a column of text here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. We can make that slightly bigger, something like this, where it's easy and there's 7 words. Now, when we zoom out and we look at it at the exact size, can you read that quite easily? Well, if you can't, then just simply increase the type by 1 point. All I did there was press Command Shift and that weird greater than arrow. I'm going to go ahead into paragraph. I'm going to take away hyphenation, which is important. Okay, I'm going to stick to about there. That looks good. Okay, now let's say that this is the readable text. We worked out that this is easy to read for the format that they're watching. All we need to do now is have a look at what our type size is, which this is 20 points. So if we wanted to create, let's say, a header 3, so H3, all we need to do is go to this part here, go to your points. We're going to press times, which is this Shift 8, the little asterisk, 1.618, which is the golden ratio. When we press OK, that's going to times that by 1.618. You can also do this by just doubling it, maybe doing another fraction. It doesn't have to be the golden ratio, but it does work. So let's say we've got this is H3. Let's go ahead to make this medium. Okay, we're going to duplicate that again. We're going to go to H2. I'm going to then go ahead again and press times by 1.618. We've got H2. Let's do H1 times by 1.618. And then we'll do our title text, which is one last one, times by 1.618. Boom. We'll call this headline. And we're going to change this to bold. So just there, we've created a really nice and harmonious type system based on readability and legibility, and it didn't take that long. So if you're watching this video, you are probably likely trying to learn more about graphic design and the intricacies of it. Well, this video is sponsored by Skillshare, and it'll be great for you because if you want to learn more graphic design tips, want to learn a new skill in design, let's say how to create cool grungy textures, you can do that. If you want to learn logo design, you can do that. I've even got my own Skillshare original class on there, which is all about generating iconic logo design ideas. However, Skillshare has just recently implemented something called a learning path, which is genius. For instance, Procreate Dreams has just released. This is created by the same team at Procreate, but it's all about animation, and it's quite different than the normal Procreate app. Well, Skillshare have a learning path called Become a Pro at Procreate Dreams, and it has 4 classes on there, all curated for me to learn as much as possible without having to search through all the classes they have to offer, which is a lot. If you'd like to try Skillshare out and the learning paths, but not only that, get my course basically for free, then click the link down below, because the first 500 of you that click that link will get a free trial of Skillshare, which will let you watch any class, all the classes in that 1 month. So definitely go watch mine and then go and check out the learning paths. If you're already on Skillshare, let me know what classes you're taking down below as well. Okay, tip number 4 is all about using the pen tool correctly for typography. I'm going to run through it really quickly, but there'll be another link in the video description below which you can check out, which will show you more about it. So I've got some lettering here. I've got this R that I want to vectorize in. It's just an image and I've put it in the back of my Illustrator document. For people who use the pen tool, they may start off kind of like this. You know, they don't really know where they're placing the points, and it kind of looks okay. You can just do whatever you want. However, that is not how vector or type really works, and it's not the best practice for typography. You see, when I pull up a shape like a circle, I was going to say a squircle, but a circle, you'll see that the handles are at the top, bottom, left, and right. And all the handles are horizontal and vertical. The reason why vector speaks like this is because it has the most minimal amounts of points possible. It's viewed better at smaller scales because the actual anchor points are at the extrema of the shape, which is the point at which it first hits the outside. So it's the extreme part of the curve. So if I was to bring some a box around this of guides, you'll see that every time my guide hits the bottom of the shape there, we let go. That is exactly where the anchor point is, and that's where the handles actually travel. So if we were to apply that to this R here, and we're in Adobe Illustrator, I would first get up my rulers, Command R, drag the ruler down, and as soon as it hits the R, I'm going to let go. And then I'm going to do the same for the side here. As soon as it hits this part here, boom, let go. Ooh, didn't hit it right there. As soon as it hits the inside of here, let go. As soon as it hits over here, let go. And as soon as it hits here, let go. Okay, that seems like a bit of craziness. Even down here, we can do it. Boom. As soon as it hits down here, boom. What these guides do is that they allow you to see where the anchor points should be. So as soon as the guide hits it, that's where an anchor point should be, and that's where the handles should travel. So let's go ahead and turn on our smart guides. So we have this thing here. We're going to drag this out, holding Shift, boom. Then we're going to come down here to this one, and as soon as it hits, we're going to drag that one out. We're going to drag down here, boom. Then we're going to use the handles here, horizontal and vertical, to make sure that they're the correct spacing. Come up here, there's no handle needed. Up, drag out, drag in. And you can see that I'm just following the sort of guides of it. Look, I'm just dragging and dragging down here. You can see how easy the system is. And what this allows you to do is create something like this, where all the handles, or most of them aside from the inverted or the intersection parts, are horizontal and vertical. So that's how you use the pen tool professionally for creating typography. Okay, the last tip, but by far not the least, is optical illusions. Optical illusions happen all the time in typography. Here I have a bunch of shapes. These are the main shapes that most Roman or serif, or even just most type, all shapes are derived from, which is the square, the circle, the triangle. Now, if I was to show you this so, you wouldn't say that these were all on the same axis or all the same mathematical size, but in fact, if I bring the guides back, they are the exact same mathematical size, perfectly. However, why does the circles look smaller than the squares? Why does the triangle look a bit weird? The reason why is because human brains don't look at shapes logically or even correctly. It's actually lying to us. Although these are mathematically perfectly the same size, we need to do something called overshooting and undershooting and optical balancing. So in order for this circle or any rounded shape or any rounded letter form to look the same size as this block or this square one, we must increase the size. We do this by just increasing it ever so slightly above what's known as the X height, which is this line and this line on the baseline. And we do the same with any of these triangle ones here as well. We increase it ever so slightly. Now, if I just go ahead and do this and this, you'll notice now, if I get rid of these lines, that they all look evenly in line, even though mathematically they're not. To explain it further, here's my font app. If I type the characters IO over here, you'll notice in my font app we have the baseline, the cap height, and then there's the X height. So this is in caps, so we're on the cap height. This is the area in which we've drawn our text. You'll notice that we have these kind of like shaded parts here. This is called the overshooting bit. That's what I call it. It's where you overshoot. Now, these two letters look like they're on the same platform. They look like they're exactly aligned and mathematically perfect, but they're not. Again, it's lying to you. Because if we go to the O over here, you'll notice that if I zoom in on the O, we've actually extended the O far above the eye into the overshooting area. That's pretty wild. In fact, if I do this on Illustrator and we create some guides of the baseline to the X height, you'll notice that the eyes are here, but as soon as we get to any curved characters, we have an overshooting part here to make it look in line. So make sure you're overshooting and undershooting, which is basically the same as over, but just under the letter. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to learn more, then press that red subscribe button. It means the world to me. I am obsessed with typography and graphic design, and you get videos like this every week from me, sometimes even twice a week, most of the time. Again, the first 500 of you that click that link down below for Skillshare will get a free trial of Skillshare where you can watch my class all to do with generating iconic logo design ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.